With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yoma Daf Pei Gimel. We are up to Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, in the middle of the Amud, starting with the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to be speaking about someone who was seized with an illness that's called in Chazal bulmus. It's an illness, it's a life-threatening disease. It's induced by hunger, and one of the symptoms that the person is in their dangerous bulmus state is that their vision becomes weak. We'll see in the Gemara that there are other symptoms, that there are other chushim that a person has that becomes weakened. And being that it's a life-threatening disease, not only are we going to continue to learn the sugya, that other than the three exceptions, there is nothing that we do that can, God forbid, hinder our very life. And Yom Kippur and fasting on Yom Kippur is put aside. The person who needs will eat. But bulmus has a uniqueness that the immediacy, the need to eat mamish ASAP, ASAP, is more than in other diseases, and therefore it's going to result in unique halachas about what exactly should be given to the person that has bulmus. And we're going to continue to learn the general rule that even a suffix nefashis is doicha. We're going to go from Yom Kippur then to Shabbos. We're going to be learning about if a person has tevel midrabanan. That means a person has produce that on a biblical level it doesn't need to be tithed at all. But midrabanan, it has to be tithed. Tithing, separating Trumas and Maasros on Shabbos and on Yom Tov is also an Isur D'Rabbanan. So here, you're going to be violating a rabbinic rule whenever there is a need to eat ASAP. The question is, if you have to pick and choose, so Rabbah is of the opinion that a person should tithe that produce, even if what's needed to cure the ill is all of the food. Which means that after you separate the truma, the ill person will eat the truma. Yet it's better for the person to eat truma rather than for a person to eat tavel midrabanan. Truma midrabanan, tavel midrabanan. We're going to learn a lot about that. And we're going to learn these are one of the famous dafim in Shas that speak about remedies. We're going to have various interesting remedies for bulmus. We're going to have stories on Daf Pei Gimel Amud Beis of Tanoim and of Amoraim who were seized with bulmus and how they healed themselves, which will lead us into a very famous Gemara. At least for me, it's famous because my father of blessed memory always quoted that Rabbi Meir have a doyek bishma. That Rav Meir, by hearing the name of individual, would right away come to an understanding of that person's current character and how that played itself out, how Rabbi Meir protected himself unlike his chavedim, and a lot more. Chaver, it's mamish gevaldik. So let us start on Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, in the middle of the Amud. We are learning the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Mi sha'achazoi bulmus. If someone was seized with the illness called bulmus, says Rashi, choyle ha'oiches machmasri ovein. What brought about the illness? Hungering. And when that happens, as a symptom, einof kehois. One's vision becomes weakened, and once a person gets this weakening in the vision, vuhu mesuken lamus. That's considered halachically a person's life is in danger. However, but when the person eats, the moment they realize that their vision was restored, then you know that you are well. So for example, when it comes to other reasons why a person is going to break their fast on Yom Kippur, we mentioned it quickly, but we'll mention it again quickly, that even if a person has to break his or her fast, they try to do it with shiurim on Yom Kippur. So whatever the shiur of eating and of drinking is, they have lesser than that shiur. And then they wait the time that it takes you to have a pras of bread. As we all know in practice, it's good to know these dinim, we should never need it. And then at least on a biblical level, you're not violating your fast. We don't apply shiurim to bulmus, because once a person's vision is weakened because of this bulmus illness, you are out of danger when your vision is restored. Eat and drink until your vision is restored. Inside the Mishnah, we give him food, afilu devarim tameim, even if what's available is non-kosher food. And by the way, kosher food is available a block away, 2 minutes away. Here is what's available right now. there's an immediacy, there's an urgency. And how much and until when does the person eat? Until the person's vision is restored. Furthermore, another din in the Mishnah. If someone was bitten by a mad dog, many people now would word this illness as rabies. We're going to have a lot about kelev shaita. If we're not going to learn it in this daf, we'll go into the next daf. It's going to be another phenomenal Gemara that Chazal understood this mad dog potential illness not only to be of physical nature, but there was also some sort of esoteric nature to it as well. There's a ruach ra'ah that's connected to this kelev shaita. And as we'll see in next daf, that the precautions we have to take to protect ourselves from an evil spirit is even more than the precautions that we have to take to protect ourselves from a physical ailment. And in the times of the Mishnah, there were certain remedies, like we have nowadays, that were challenged by the then accepted science of medicine. So there were people that felt that if you take the liver lobe from the mad dog, and you feed it to the person who was bitten by that dog, they'll get better. The Chachamim hold that this remedy is a folklore remedy. It's not a scientific remedy. And therefore, says the Mishnah, the Tanach holds that ein machilin oisoi mechatzar kavod sheloi. This is, whether it's Yom Kippur, whether Bachlal, the liver of a dog, any part of a dog is not kosher. On the other hand, if a person's life is in danger, then all the rules are put aside. But you can only put it aside for something that's accepted as a proper therapy. So the Chachamim hold that the person who was bitten by the mad dog eating its liver lobe is not going to be a refuah. However, amazing, Machlokes Tanoim, Rabbi Masya ben Choresh is matir. He holds that this is a remedy enough that will justify someone eating non-kosher. I forgot the names, but the person who came with the first vaccine in Europe was a Yid who learned this Mishnah, and he said it was from this Mishnah that he chapped the idea that from the illness, if you introduce what's called today the dead virus in a person, the body creates, as we know, antibodies, and that brings about a protection and a refuah. It was based on this Mishnah. Amazing. Another illness, which the Mishnah calls hachoishesh bigroinoi, literally meaning a person who has a pain in his or her throat. And as we will learn in next daf, there is an illness called sefidna. It's an illness that only begins in the teeth and in the gums, and it hurts. But if not treated, it could extend and spread into one's intestines, which means into one's inner organs, and then it might become a deathly illness. So we don't have to wait for the person first to become deathly ill and then to deal with it. Once you already have this pain, the beginning, the early onset of this illness called sefidna, then matilin loy sam b'toich piv, even b'Shabbos, then you put a remedy in his or her mouth. Even on Shabbos, guys, we're not only speaking about overriding the rabbinic gezerah of not taking medicine, right? Even for a chayla she'ein by sakana, we're not talking about that. We're speaking about a person who is allowed to violate biblical Shabbos by harvesting, by cutting herbs out of the ground, and any other biblical violation. Why? Because even though now this is not an illness that is life-threatening, but if not treated, it might become life-threatening. In other words, we draw the line in the sand way more than in other halachas whenever life is involved, because of the rule, B'pnei shehu safek nefashos, and v'chol safek nefashos is doiches Shabbos. The Gemara will explain that which appears to be a superfluous expression in the Mishnah. Another din in the Mishnah, and we're dedicating this class for the miracle that is needed for all the Yidden and everyone else that are trapped now in Surfside, and that's what we're learning about. We're learning about a building that's collapsing. Misha nafla all of mapoilis. If a person is in an area where a building collapsed, and here going through the rubble, is going to save lives if someone is still alive underneath the rubble. Going through the rubble could even include a biblical violation. I'm not even talking about nowadays with the amazing machinery that we have and electricity and fire, but even then, once you start moving around these big pieces of stone and of earth, it can be charisha, it can be binyan, we don't care. A building collapsed, even safik usham, safik ein usham, you don't even know if someone is there. Safik chai, safik meis. Even if someone is there, maybe they already, God forbid, passed away, but maybe they are alive. Safik kuti, safik Yisrael. Kuti, in this context, is a non-Jew. And theoretically, we're not Machalal Shabbos to save the life of a non-Jew, but Chazal already said that Mishum Eva, we do, but let's just go weiter. So in all of these cases, that means even if the chance of finding someone alive, it's not 50-50, not 60-40, it can be a very small percent. Nevertheless, Mefakhin Olav Esagal. We're going to occupy ourselves, we're going to clear the rubble. Furthermore, Metza'u Chai, once you find a person alive, and the Mishnah really means to say that sometimes tragically, by the time you get to the victim under the rubble, they are barely living. And sometimes a person can say that even if we will remove the rubble, the person will live another minute. And leaving it as it is, they'll live another 30 seconds. In other words, it looks like it's too late. If the person is breathing, there's no such a thing as too late. It doesn't matter if our Chilul Shabbos will only bring about another second of life. We are obligated to add that second of life. Mefakchen. It's only if the imays, once the person passed away and you know there's no one else there, then even though there is an inyan of kavod habriyos, but that doesn't justify biblical violation of Shabbos. If someone passed away, then yanichu, you leave things the way they are until after Shabbos. All right, so we're going to focus on many parts of the Mishnah, starting with the first opening line. We're speaking about this illness called bulmus, and as we have Kiminig the Baraisas to expound upon this illness and its remedies. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'ar kol nimi dvarim. Tanu Rabbanan. Minayin hoyu yoidim sheheiru einov. The Baraisa is really speaking about the night of Yom Kippur. So explained the Rishonim that the concept is, it's not about how you feel. It's you eat until your vision is restored. What happens if this is happening at night and you don't have candles that are lit and the person cannot see to know whether the vision is restored or not? So there is another indicator to know that the food is already kicking in and it's preventing this potential death because of bulmus is mishayafchen ben toiv ledam. We give the person different dishes. The moment the person is able to taste, to differentiate between something that tastes good and something that does not taste good, Amar Abaye explaining, Ubetama, bulmus doesn't only affect one's vision, it also affects, like we said, we have 5 senses. It affects the sense of taste. So another indicator, if you're living in the dark, Yom Kippur at night, so eat until you begin to see what is good and what is not good. Tanach Rabbanan, Misha Chazei Bulmus. So even though we learned in the Mishnah that there is an immediacy, there's an urgency, and you don't wait another minute, but if you have different foods available right here, right now, it's not about the time delay, but different foods have different levels of prohibitions. We don't go to the extreme and say, it's bulmus, anything. No, anything, not to waste time. As much as you need until your vision is restored. But if you have 2 levels of machalas asurais, here also, eat that which is less prohibited. Machilin oisai hakalkal, from the least. In other words, you ideally have this person violate that which is considered a lesser violation. And only then, if that was not enough, then he should go to that which is considered a greater violation. For example, if there is in front of this person tevel and nevela. Now, before produce is tithed, let's speak about lakula alma, the 5 grains. According to most, 5 grains and olives and grapes. According to some Rishonim, all fruits. Prior to it being tithed, if anyone eats it, a kohen or a non-kohen, the person is chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. Eating nevela is a terrible thing. But you don't have the penalty of Misa B'dei Shamayim. It's a lot, you get Malkus. So here we have to wait. So Tevel is more Chamur. So what do you give this person? Malchil and Ois and Nevela. Now to make something clear, if Tevel is here and the Vela is 2 doors away, you give the guy what's here. In other words, we don't waste time. We're speaking about a case where it won't make a difference time-wise. Then hakalkal. Another example, if there is tevel or shmita produce. What's the issue with shmita produce? So Rashi says it's speaking about a time that the produce that you have in your house is no longer found in your region, in the Holy Land. It's divided into 3 regions for the Chayas Basada. And here we have a positive mitzvah of doing what we call biur, peiros, shmita. So eating it without doing beer is a violation of an asay. So here says the Mishnah, obviously shvi is and not tevel. However, if the options are tevel and truma, now here you can argue they're both the same, because if you want to understand the severity through its punishment, eating tevel, misibedei shamayim. A non-kohen, obviously a non-kohen eating truma, misibedei shamayim. The person here that we're talking about is a non-kohen. So, and we're saying the rule hakal kal. So what's more kal? So the Gemara says that's a machlokes tanoim. The Tanya says in a brayso machil noisei tevel. Better for him to violate only tevel ve'ein machil noisei truma. So holds the chachamim. However, ben tema oimer no punkt fakert truma and not tevel. Comes along Rabba and he adds Azoy, Omar Rabba, Heicha de Efsher Bechulin, the Kula Alma Le Pligi, the Misaknin Lei or Misafin Lei, separating Trumas or Maisres, even though we are saying that Bulmos eat right away. Guys, when Mashiach is coming, we'll become so familiarized in the separating of Trumas or Maisres, it will take us a rega. It's not called a waste of time. So he's making a good point. If you have a lot of produce and the estimated amount of food that's needed for this person to get better, for his or her vision to be restored, is not the whole pile of food, is only part of it, says Rabbah, for sure, separate Trumas u'Maisros, and now the person will be healed by eating chulin. There's no machloikas there. I will see separating Trumas u'Maisros is Asur Midrabanan, but that's the point. It's only Asur Midrabanan, even if it's on Shabbos or on Yom Kippur. Ki pligi, where do we have a machlekes tanoim? B'dolay afsher b'chulin. Gavaldik. So you have a pile of food, and we know bulmas or gaval. You need to eat, 2 ounces, 10 ounces, a 12-ounce steak. I'm just giving it a certain amount of food. If you're going to separate the trumas, so it's not going to be tevel, you will have to eat up everything, the chulin and the truma. In other words, you're going to, when the solution is not tevel, not truma, I mean, it sounds like it's the obvious. We'll see why it's not that obvious. Then separate. The question is, even if you were to separate it, so you took away the tevel status, but we are foreseeing the ill person, the patient, to need to eat everything that's here, which would also include the truma, and that's where you have the machlokes. The second to last line, that mar savar tevel chamur, and therefore better separate, even though it means you're going to eat truma. Abi nisht tevel umar savar trumas chamura. Dafke, don't separate it. Why? Explains the Gemara. Mar savar tevel chamur, but the fact that truma is fit to be eaten to kohanim, the last line, even though I'm not the kohen. The guy with the bulmus is not the kohen. The fact that truma is not usher to everyone indicates that truma is a lesser problem. Umar savar, no, trumas chamura. Why? Because once it's truma, a non-kohen may never eat it. Tevel always has a solution. Tevel, since it could be made fit, is considered a lesser problem. And again, that's the question when you have to pick and choose one or the other. Daf Pei Gimel Amid Beis. And now the Gemara is going to challenge the need for Rabba to make that whole statement. In other words, of course, you can counter argue, don't even waste time separating it, but the Gemara is not saying that. Of course, if by separating the Trumas u'Maisros, which takes a mamash harega, if what is foreseen to be needed to heal the patient is only from the leftover chulin, of course, not truma, not chulin. Efsher b'chulin pshita. So the Gemara says, nah, Rabba is not pshita, because Rabba wanted to emphasize even when it's on Shabbos. And what's the chiddush on Shabbos? That Shabbos normally we do not separate trumas u'maisros. The way we word it is because even though you're making a tikkun that's not discernible begashmias to the eye, the Chachamim nevertheless say it's like tikkun keli, it's like tikkun mana. Happens also to be that since you're not allowed to separate Trumas from Maasros, so Tevel becomes Muktzah. I'm mentioning Muktzah because you should know that there are many levels of rabbinic violations, and Muktzah is way up there. Oh. So the Gemara says, no, Shabbos Nami, even if it's on Shabbos, of course, if Efsher B'chulin, separate Trumas from Maasros, because I know that it's a rabbinic violation, but on the other hand, it's only a rabbinic violation. If you won't separate it, you're going to be violating Tevel Midoiraisa. He says, even if you're going to call it Tiltul, which is there's Tikkun Mana, even at Muktzah, it's only Midrabananu. So the Gemara says, nah, Rabbah speaking about a case where the whole Tevel problem to begin with is also only Midrabanan. An example, guys, we're going to learn this in the next daf. Vegetables, according to all opinions, only need to be tithed Midrabanan. Another example, if you have grain, but the grain did not grow in the ground in Israel, even if you took the earth of the Holy Land and you put it into a vase or into a vase, if it's not perforated, then biblically, whatever grows from it need not be tithed. That's the whole sugya that we have so many times, that if there is a hole in the bottom of the vase and it has to be within a certain airspace above, close to the ground, then it draws some of its nourishment from the ground. It's considered planted in the ground. But here the case is, which means to begin with, the whole obligation to tithe is only rabbinic. Now this is gavaldik. It's only Tevel Midrabanan. And don't forget that separating it, fixing it, is another rabbinic violation. So that is where we say, Mar Savar, that Tevel is Chamur, and therefore, violate the rabbinic Muktzah. Don't violate rabbinic Tevel. Umar Savar, again, this is in the case where even after separating it, you will have to eat all of it, so you're going to end up eating Truma. Eating Truma is more Chamur, even though it's also only Truma Midrabanan, and that is the Machlokes. Now, now it's Gavaldik. So first of all, Rabbah has a Chiddush. But Rabbah now is making a statement that when it's Efsher B'chulin, Rabbah says that it should be tithed. L'kula alma. You're right. The Machlokes is that even after you will tithe it, you have to eat up everything, which will mean the Truma. But if you don't have to eat up anything, then if it's just about eating Tevel Midrabanan versus violating the rabbinic prohibition of tithing, Rabbah holds that it's better, l'kula alma, for you to tithe it, better than even eating Tevel Midrabanan. That's what the Rabbah says. The Gemara is saying maybe that in itself is a machlokes tanoim. Lema tanoihi, the Tanya. Guys, we learned this. Mi shenashchay nachash. If someone was bitten by a snake, we're speaking about on Shabbos, and you have to bring a doctor. So let's begin with rabbinic violations that are overruled. We're going menakala lakavid. So koirim loiroife mimakim lamakim. Like Rashi says, even if the doctor is outside of the tchum, so what? Go bring the doctor. Another din, umekarin lo yasatar negoilus. Even though we already brought up, we'll speak more about it soon, that remedies that are not accepted as scientific at your given time may not be done on Shabbos. Well, that's really the machlokes between the Tanakama and Amasya. But here the minig then was that if someone was bitten by a snake, they would take a taranagoylus, they would take a hen, and they would tear open the hen, and they would place the hen on the bite, on the snake bite area of the body. And this Braisa holds that's good enough of a remedy. Even though here, killing a hen is already an Isur Doiraisa, right? Shchita. Shchita, as we know, doesn't mean Shchita. It means, taking the life. Even drawing blood is considered part of that malacha. Another din, the goizes in loy as ha-kirishin, that if you have leeks or other vegetables that were used either to eat or to put on the wound, and again, you're harvesting, it's koitzer, you do that. And ve'ein sorech la'aser divrei Rebbe. Guys, don't forget that leeks, l'kula alma, vegetables, they have to be tithed, only midrabanan. He says, don't tithe it. However, Rabbi Loza ben Abshimon Oimer, no. Same concept. Tithing doesn't take time. Lo yoichel at she'ya'aser. You have to tithe the vegetables. Now, l'chu'ura, what Rava took as a pshita, l'chayra, that's the machlokes. We are saying that even if after tithing it, what is going to be needed won't be the truma part, there's a machlokas tanoim whether you should tithe it or not. So l'chayra nema that Rabbi Elazar ben Shimoni, Rabba will follow that shita. We're not refuting Rabba, but this does not follow Rebbe. Right? The Rebbe says that don't tithe. Eat tevel midrabanan. Sounding like that eating tevel midrabanan is a lesser problem than being mesaken produce by separating on Shabbos. So says the Gemara, no, Rabba indeed can go according to all. Afilu tema Rebbe. At kan loy ka'amar Rebbe hasam ela. Since by vegetables there is never a biblical obligation. Ever. It's not about was it planted in a perforated pot or not a perforated. Is it planted in the Holy Land or outside? No. Yerakis are only midrabanan. That's why Rebbe holds, I don't want you to tithe it. However, avol meiser dagan, since elsewhere, not in the case that we mentioned above, not when it was planted in an otzitz, right, but elsewhere, it's d'oraisa. So here argues the Gemara to make Rabba go l'kula alma, afilu Rebbe moide. The ish oras le ba'otzis she'einu nakuf. Then that might lead asel mechal ba'otzis shehu nakuf, and he'll be moide that as long as tithing it will guarantee that you won't eat the truma part, tithe it. And again, the machlokes we learned on Amud Aleph is that there's so little food, and this guy with bulmus will have to eat all of it up. So he's either going to eat tevel or truma. That is where you have the machlokes tanoi, which is considered hakal kal weiter tanu rabbanon. Now we're going to go into remedies, and it's good to speak out now. And we'll repeat this on Daf Pei Daled. The chayrim hakadmoinim, that we are not to practice Talmudic medicine. And from the various reasons that are given, I know there are exceptions, but generally that's the rule. And the reason that's given is because Chazal, they did not clarify, certainly not the amounts and the intervals of these remedies, which means that one can follow to the best of their ability and it will not work because they're not doing as they said, and it's going to be moitzilaz on the remedies of the Chachamim. Void, and there are other reasons for that, but that's an intro. But let's go learn what they said. So Tana Rabbanan, Misha Chazei Bulmas. So then Ma'achilin Oisan Devash, the person should be fed honey, V'chol Mina Mesika, and all types of sweets. Why? Says the Tana, because Advash V'chol Mina Mesika Me'iren Mo'oir Einav Shel Adam. If someone needs his or her vision to be restored, the way to go is having sweets. Aha. Now, and we're quoting a story that's quoted many times throughout the Gemara, that Shaul HaMelech at a certain battle, he decreed that no one should be eating or drinking. He imposed a fast day. His own son, Yohanan, was not aware of it. And because of him not being aware of that takon of his father, he had a staff and he stuck it into honey and he ate some honey. And with the whole consequence of what almost happened to Yonasan. But he also, Yonasan, made a statement which was really a reprimand to his father. Because he got so much koyach from having a little bit of honey, he really didn't understand that why would my father make a takana against soldiers in battle to fast when we want them to be stronger, not weaker. And he said, Ru'una, gebakuk, that ki oiru einai, that my eyes, my vision got better. Ki ta'amti ma'ad dvash hazeh. Okay, so that's a source from scripture that sweets are good to vision. The problem is that's a real proof, right? We gave an intro. Ein raya, only a zecher. How is this a zecher? It's clear. So the Gemara says not because Yonasan didn't have bulmus. Tohasam lav bulmus achazeh. He was healthy to begin with, and he just made a comment how sweets, they make your vision even better. Amar Abaye, this remedy of having sweets, or b'chlal, that sweets are beneficial to your vision, is elo la'acher achila, that only is beneficial if you, prior to eating sweets, you ate a meal. A meal means bread, ate food. Avol kaidem achila, but if a person didn't eat, and they're going to go ahead and have sweets, then migrar goder, they're going to make you hungrier. And you know what? Bulmus is brought about because the person was fasting. No, it's fasting, starving is what brings about bulmus. So especially if someone has bulmus, can you imagine not eating? No, just sweets will make you hungry. It will make it worse. The chsiv, as it says, and the story here was that vayimtzo ish mitzri basada. They found an Egyptian man in the field, and vayikar choisei el David, they brought him to King David, and vayitnu lo, and they gave him first lechem vayoichel, vayashkeyu mayim, and they gave him water. And then vayitnu loy pelach devela. They gave him a cake of pressed figs. Ushnei tzemukim. Either it means 2 raisins or 2 clusters of raisins, which are sweets. Vayoichel, and he ate. Vatoshev ruchay elav, and his spirit, his ruach, came back to him. Ki loy ochal lechem v'leishasamayim shloisha yamim ushloisha leilos. And this is a person that after fasting 72 hours, he was a good he was a good candidate to get bulmus. And they dafka did not give him sweets right away. First they gave him bread and water, and then indeed sweets are even that much better. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, Misha chazi bulmus, machilin oisoi, what you really should give, sweets, yeah, but not pure sweets. Aliyah b'dvash. Aliyah is the tail of a sheep. It's very fatty meat. And add sweets to it. Rav Huna b'reid Rabbi Yeshua Amar, even soilless nikia, even fine flour. We know that sweets are good for bulmus, even for bulmus, but on the other hand, don't eat it on an empty stomach. So you can put it in the fatty meat, put it inside the soilless. Let's make challah with honey. It's good for your vision. But he mentioned good wheat flour without any whole wheat, God forbid. It's better. Rav Papa says that even if you're going to have flour of barley, it's good because you're not going to be an empty stomach. You're putting devash into it, and it's going to help you get your vision back. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Pam achaz achozani bulmus. There was a time that I got bulmus. Veratzti, and I went running lemizracha shel te'ena, to the east side of a fig tree. You see, my friends, the sun that shines in the morning and in the afternoon, but there is something about the pre-noon, the morning sunlight, how it positively affects fruits. Therefore, the fruits that are on the eastern side of a tree will be sweeter and better, versus the afternoon sun that will be relative, detrimental to the fruits. So Rabbi Yochanan went, he knew he needs to have something sweet. He also knew that he has to have it not to have just sweets. So here he's eating a sweet fruit. So he ran to the eastern side of the fig tree, and through that he got better. And he said, I fulfilled on myself the pasuk that ha-chachma techaya balel. I possess chachma, and the chachma brought me back life. Had I not known that, I would have eaten from the western side, and that even though it might have tasted sweet, it would not bring the benefit of what we're talking about, that this sweetness. In other words, if you think that you're going to buy a Pashke's candy and eat it, oi gewalt. No, even the fig from the western side doesn't work. Honey, or the fig from the eastern side of the tree. The Tani Rabbi Yosef, what should you eat? Yafna lemizracha. And as it says that mimeged tevuois shamish, and from the delicacies of the sun's fruit. So we see from the pasuk that the sun makes a fruit that much better, but we know it's dafka the eastern sun. Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbi Yosi, they were once traveling. Stam, it's connected to their traveling. They got dehydrated, they got hungry, and achazei bulmus l'Rabbi Yehuda. So from these two, Rabbi Yehuda got bulmus first. What did he do? Kapchei l'roya. There was a shepherd right there. The shepherd had bread. Before the sweet stam, you have to eat, like it says in the Mishnah. Now, if one's life is not in danger, to take someone else's food, even if you plan to pay them back later, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to steal with the intention of repaying it. But if someone's life is in danger, then you got to do what you need to do, and then you pay it back later. So he was mikapeach. That means that he took it b'koyach. He deprived that shepherd with that shepherd's bread and achle l'rifta. He was allowed to do it again because we look at bulmus. Once a person's vision deteriorates because of hunger, don't play around with that. Eat right away. And Amalei Rabbi Yosi, he made a statement he made a critical statement to his chaver, and he told him kipachta saroya. He says that you deprived the shepherd. Lav dafke, it should have been done. However, and Rabbi Yosi, by the way, didn't eat anything. So Rabbi Yosi now is hungrier. And kimata lamasa, the time they reached their destination, they reached the town, now bulmas, achazei bulmas le Rabbi Yosi. Now Rabbi Yosi didn't have to take b'koyach anyone's food because people knew who the great Rabbi Yosi was. And adrenuhu is adruhu belagi v'tsoye. All of the people, they came to Rabbi Yosi and they gave him jars of honey and they gave him platters of cooked dishes. And Baruch Hashem, he had what to eat and what to drink. So Amalei Rabbi Yehuda now criticizes him back. He shines the mirror on him. He says, Aniki pachti yasaroya. I deprived one shepherd. You, very nice, Yashikoyach, you didn't eat with me. So what did you do now? Now you deprived the whole city from all of their sweet foods that they gave to you. And the message, I think this is all leading up to, is that once a person's vision is deteriorating, every minute counts. And even if you're not going to die, but the amounts that you'll need later is much more. Nip it in the bud, we say in English. Bite it. Another story. Now, being that we spoke about trips, the next story is not about bulmus, but this is a phenomenal story. There was another time that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi Hava Ka'asli Be'urcha, they were going on a trip. Now we're making a statement that Rav Meir Hava Doyek Bishma. Rav Meir would examine the name of a potential host, of any person with whom he might have interacted with, and through the name, he would understand who the person is. And Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi, at that time in their lives, they made no such examinations. Now, when they came to a certain location, and they needed a place where to lodge. So, not Motel 6, or the Hilton, or whatever it is, they're, mom and pop. So you have to know who is the innkeeper. Is Yahavuluhu. So the people in the city told these Tanoim where to go. Over there's an inn. And when they came to the destination, Amrullah, they asked the balabas of the inn, Ma Shimcha, whom's are you? What's your name? Amrullahu, my name is Kidoir. So Rav Meir said in his mind, Shmami no Adam Rashuhu. But Azad Naman. Why? Kidoir. Yeah, Shenemar in Hazinu. Now he put words together. Kidoir ta'apucha is hema. Right? They are a generation of reversals. Now really, the Hemshech HaPasuk, right? Banim loy emun. They're not trustworthy. So he stayed in the inn, but today you have a safe in your room that you think is safe. There, the safe was with the innkeeper that you thought was safe. So people would deposit their valuables with the innkeeper. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi ashli mulei kisayu. They gave the innkeeper their purse. And this is before Shabbos, as we'll see. Rav Meir, because doyek bishma, kidoir tapucha isema, loy, don't trust them. So Rav Meir he did not entrust them with the wallet, but to leave the wallet in the room, that's a vada, it's going to get stolen. That was a non-option. So what did he do? He's oisvei bekivrei da'avua. He went to the cemetery. Mistama, the inn's backyard, had a shtickle section, Mistama, of cemetery, and he felt which part of earth is the part of earth that the innkeeper will respect the most. His father's grave. So he buried it on top of the innkeeper's father's grave. Secure. Problem was, it wasn't that secure. Because just like Kidoid was Taka Rasha, who do you think he learned it from? From his dad. The guy's dad was a Rasha. He was such a Rasha that he came from Gehenim to the dream of his son to tell his son, my Tatila son, there is money on my grave. Chaparain. Here's what's going on over here. Is Achzalei Bechelmei. The father appeared to the host in the dream. And he told his son, To, Shakil Kise, go grab the purse. The Manachadesha that's on my head. Oh man, can you imagine? Now, what happened is that the innkeeper didn't know if it's worthwhile to trouble himself, so for some reason he shared the dream. So Lamachar, Amar Lahu, he shared maybe with his friends, and they heard it, Chavra de Chavra, maybe he felt he's going to share it with them and to see how they react, that Hachiz Chazoyle Bechalmoy, that I had a dream, my father told me that there is a purse on top of him. So Amri Lei, they told him, Chelma de Beishimshei, Beishimshei Rashi says, a Friday night dream, less Luhu Mamasha, has no meaning. We didn't have this, if I'm not mistaken, over there in the Sugya of Chaloimus in Horoye in Brachos. Rashi writes as a concept that since a person, Friday night is Bimenucha, once a person relaxes, their mind wanders all over the place, and it has no meaning. So they put a doubt in the mind of the innkeeper. But you know what Rav Meir thought? The doubt is only good to buy him time. Rav Meir spent the rest of the Shabbos over there in the Beis HaKvaris to make sure that the innkeeper doesn't get his wallet. Mistama, there was something, that there was a Rebbe dollar in the wallet. There was something of great value that justified for Rav Meir to spend the Shabbos there. Also, Rabbi Meir v'notrei kula Yoma. He guarded it. There's nothing wrong with that. But he spent his Shabbos in the vicinity of this guy's father's grave to make sure that no one digs it up. And va'aisei l'machad. L'mach means Motzoi Shabbos. Motzoi Shabbos, he took his wallet. So Rav Meir has his wallet. I'm sorry, va'aisei nekuda le'machar after Shabbos. Amru Loi, the other two Tanoim, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi, they went to the innkeeper and they told him, Havlan Kisan, please give us back our wallets. So Amar Lahu says, the innkeeper, guys, this is a Motzoi Shabbos story. Lo yehoyu devarim ha'olam. Lahadam, I don't know who you are. Ich weiß garnished. Amar Lahu Rav Meir. Now Rav Meir turns to his colleagues and he tells him, Amai loy dai kisu bishma. Why didn't you examine it? You should have known that from his name, Kidoir. So Amru Lei, and they counter-criticized Rav Meir. They told him, Amai loy amrat lonmar. Why didn't you tell us to distrust him? Because if you took your own precautions, where's your Abbas Yisrael? So Amar Lahu, Rav Meir gave a Gavaldik response. He told him that Amar, the Amri Ana, all I had the right to tell myself is a chashash. I suspected him. Dayik b'shma is not empirical evidence. You can't condemn a person because of his name. Rav Meir felt for it to be Lashon Hara. You're not right. You can't speak about that guy. You don't know who he is. He suspected for himself, but achzuke mi amrinon. You can't be machzikim to be a rasha, to be a ganef. So you have to know yourself that you should be dayik b'shma and use it according to your ruach hakodesh. Okay, so now the kids they have a problem. They want their wallets back, and they have to get it out of the innkeeper. So what did they do? Is first of all mashchu va'ailu lechanusa. They had a fabrengen with him. Chanusa doesn't mean a store; it means a bar. And they were hoping that after drinking together, they're going to get him to make a statement and they're going to catch him. What happened was even better. Even before they needed to drown this guy in l'chaim, chazu, as they're interacting with him, they saw that tolfachei asafame, that there were lentils on his mustache, which means that they knew what he ate for lunch or what he ate for dinner. He ate lentils. So what did they do? They went and they told this man's wife that your husband asked you to give us those wallets, and just to prove that we are coming from your husband as a simon, he told us something that only you two guys know, that you guys had lentils for the last meal. And taka, no one else was going to know that. So it sounded to her that this is a good simon, that the husband sent them to retrieve their wallets, and v'shaklu likisai, and they got their wallets back, and they were good. And va'aisu, they confronted the innkeeper. They told the innkeeper, you see, your wife gave you bistaganif. So Azal Iu went to the innkeeper v'katle le'itze, and he killed his wife. And on that, Hainu de Tanan or Hainu de Tanya. This is the story. The Braisa says that on the account of someone not washing mayim rishonim, washing before eating, that brought about in a certain time hechilu basar chazir. That person was fed non-kosher food. So Rashi tells us that b'chlal there's an isur on Yidden selling treifa food. But we're speaking about a time, it was a time of persecution, and a person had a business, he had a restaurant, and he would sell non-kosher food. But what he would do is, whoever would wash their hands the way we wash before eating, that would be the way that the balabayas would know, here's a Jew. And he would feed that person kosher food. In other words, it was a kosher restaurant in disguise. And if you didn't wash mayim rishayim, so the innkeeper, the owner felt, you're not Jewish. So the story was that there was a Yid, but he was not medagdik and mayim rishayim. And when he went into that restaurant and he didn't wash his hands properly, so the owner felt that's not Jewish and he gave him non-kosher food. So the Brisa says, on the account of mayim rishayim or the lack thereof, someone ate basar chazir. On the account of someone not using mayim achroinim, which is our story, Kidoir, Hargu Asanefesh, someone was killed, and that was Kidoir's wife. Now, what happened after this? Ula Basoif, that Hava Daiki Bishma, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi learned that this is the way to go. Our names have meaning. You get to know someone by their names. And therefore, and later, Kimatalu Beisa, they once came to a home, and the owner of the home's name was Bala. So there, loy aylu ligabe, they bechlal didn't enter there, because they say, Shmamina Rashahu. What's the issues connected to Bala? Because it says, Va'oymar lebala neufim. I had said to the one who has become worn out through adultery, like we have if your goyres acharei beloisi. This is Sada speaking, that after I have become worn out from age, Hoiseli Edna, well, I have delicate skin. We're just using the word Bala as worn out, and coming back over here, that Zikna bin Ufim. So this is a home in which people got old because of a tremendous amount of promiscuity that was going on over there, and for that, they Bechlal didn't enter. It's interesting. When it came to Geneva, they entered. Rav Meir entered. He's a ganef, he made sure that he doesn't see his wallet. But when it comes to an environment where there's nu'ufim, they b'chlal did not enter. Oh, so since we have time, so now let's go to the next case that the Mishnah spoke about. After the bulmus, the next case was someone that was bitten by a kelev shoita. Here clearly there's a machlokes tanoim. The chachamim hold that ein machilin oisay mechatzar kavet, because they felt this not to be a proven scientific remedy, and Abmasya ben Chodesh says yes, matid, it's going to potentially heal the illness. Now, what type of illness are we talking about? So again, today maybe many people will call being bitten by a mad dog, rabies or other types of bacterias. And as we'll see, that aside of the Gashmias, there is a Ruchnias Dike element which is that much more dangerous. How do you identify a dog to be a mad dog? So here we go. 5 simanim. You need all 5 of them. Piv pasuach, the mouth of the dog is open the whole time. And the saliva is dripping, he's drooling. And the ears are dropping. And the tail is resting on the dog's hind legs. It's not up, it's hanging down. And it's not walking with confidence. It's walking over there on the sides of the roads. And another sign, that when this dog barks, no sound comes out. Now, what brought about the illness in the dog? So there's a machlokes. Only in the Gemara, a machlokes. Rav Amar, Nashim kashfaniyos mesachkos boy, that there were sorcerers that were practicing their black arts on the dog, and as a result, the dog became a kelev shoita. However, Shmuel says, yes, but there's some other problem here. That ruach ra shoyla olav, that there is an evil spirit resting on the mad dog. And it was perhaps the evil spirit that brought about this physical kelev shoita. Says the Gemara, my benaya, why do I care if the dog became mad or sickly because kishuv was done on it, or whether a evil spirit is resting on it? So the Gemara says, no, ika benaya, there is a huge difference, daf pei dalet. And that is lemiktele b'davar hanizrak. Now, guys, this dog has to be killed, has to be put down. That's the nusach in English. Question is, how do you do it? So, if the dog became a kelev shoita only because of kishuv, then there should be no fear of touching the dog. nothing will happen to you. If you're not bitten by the dog, Shalom al Yisrael. Or put a mask on the dog today and you're Shalom al Yisrael. But if there is a Ruach Ra, then if you touch the dog, then the Ruach Ra can go into the person. So you have to kill it. But you can only kill it by throwing something on it. Like Rashi writes on top, that Shmuel, that Ruach Ra Shelo Olav is lo yikrav elav lo harge biyadayim. Don't touch it. Elo zoyrik by chaitz. Throw an arrow, throw a knife, stay a distant. And the Gemara says, Tanya Kavasa de Shmuel, that when you kill a kalav shaita, ein hargenoisoi ela b'davar nizrak, only with something that can be thrown. Why is that? Here, because the Braisa clearly regarding a kalav shaita, because if only, even only the chayaf bay, if you are only rubbed by it, the dog rubbed by your leg, there's no biting, there's no saliva, you are in danger. And furthermore, if you are bitten, then achas lei moyes. We'll stop over here, and God willing, we'll leave it in the middle. We're going to go continuing with learning remedies. And even though the Braisa says that if someone is bitten by a mad dog, they will die, Chazal had a remedy for that as well. God willing, to be continued.